you will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
If you can provide for me the name of the location where OzIF hosted its alleged festival between the years of 2021 and 2024 and the site itself can verify it, that would be wonderful. Alternatively, if you have any photos from any of these events, that would also help put my mind at ease. If you ignore my email or fail to provide me with the requested information, I will take your silence as an admission that your festival is in fact a complete scam, that you haven't hosted an actual OzIF since 2020, and that you've been defrauding filmmakers who think they're submitting to an actual film festival for several years now. The ball is in your court. I hope that you do the right thing. In 2023, I finished post-production on my first ever feature-length film. It was something that I had put my heart and soul into across a 3-year period and spent many months editing whilst raging at the computer every time I dealt with the most minor technical issue. Nonetheless, when it was finally done, I figured that the worst part of the process was over. I had no idea how wrong I was, because then came the most dehumanizing part of the process, the film festivals.
Oh, dear God, no!
Nearly anyone who has entered a film festival knows that the monopoly on all submissions is handled by the Platform Film Freeway, which connects festivals to filmmakers. And anyone who has entered a film into it will know that it is a grueling process of paying money to submit, anxiously waiting long periods of time to find out, and then most often getting an automated rejection email. A small minority of filmmakers who meet a certain festival criteria and whose quality of work meets a certain standard will end up seeing their films screened for a wider audience at the festival, which is the ultimate goal. But unfortunately, the pursuit of this and the way it is structured to be handled by these festivals has allowed them to have the leeway to treat filmmakers with complete disregard and contempt in the process. When you submit a project for consideration, the festival promises you a notification date by which they'll let you know whether your work has been accepted. And the absolute bare minimum that any festival can do after taking money from a filmmaker for consideration of their film is to meet the promised deadline of notifying them whether or not they made the cut. But time after time, this continuously fails to happen. I've encountered some film festivals that have missed their deadlines, acknowledged emails from me asking when I'm going to receive notification about if my film has made the cut, and then continued to not bother notifying me. I've encountered festivals that have spent weeks at a time boasting that their lineup is ready to be announced, then proceeding to announce their lineup and not bothering to notify filmmakers until later down the track. I encountered one festival that posted their entire lineup on social media, and 2 weeks later when I found this out and got in contact with them saying, "Why haven't you bothered to notify filmmakers?" they said, "Well, our team is too small for us to actually bother getting in contact with everyone," despite the fact that their small team managed to keep posting on their social media platforms almost every single day in that 2-week period. I encountered one film festival that announced their entire lineup on social media the day before the promised deadline, then proceeded to wait until 6 days after that deadline before they contacted filmmakers to let them know that we hadn't made the cut, despite the fact that I was actually being used in a promotional photo on their Film Freeway listing website, and yet they couldn't even bother acknowledging me. I've also had multiple obviously fake film festivals get in contact with me claiming they've heard great reviews about my film and inviting me to submit to their festival, despite the fact that my film hadn't actually screened anywhere in the world, and despite the fact that they should have no legitimate way of accessing my email. And when I threatened to expose them to Film Freeway, they've actually attempted to bribe me. I've also had other film festivals take my money, ignore all my emails, present themselves as a legitimate festival despite no event actually taking place, and then having the gall to openly insult filmmakers on a public forum for calling them out for missing deadlines and for ignoring customer feedback. And yet none of those festivals are the subject of today's video, because none of them have been involved with as much alleged wrongdoing as the Oz Indie Film Festival. But to delve into exactly what's wrong with this festival, we need to go back to its origins.
What we do here is go back.
On the 14th of May 2018, an ABN was established for the Oz International Film Festival. An interview from November that year with filmmaker Frank Howson established that the man began the festival with the intent to showcase the works of filmmakers that might fall through the cracks of other festivals. Co-handled by himself and a man named Barry Porter Robinson, the festival earned some coverage and had an evidently legitimate event at the Alex Theatre in St Kilda, and everything appeared well on the surface. Then things changed a little. The business name for the festival was cancelled in 2019, but a Facebook page for the festival evidently popped up on January 20th, 2020. 4 days later, the festival's name was suddenly changed to the Oz Indie Film Festival, despite that name being never registered as a business. But the festival continued to remain evidently legitimate. No festival happened in 2019, but the 2020 festival went off without a hitch, this time at the St Kilda Sports Club. And the Film Freeway listing showed several photos of happy patrons enjoying the event. Then, after 2020, everything changed. Enter August 2023. I finished my film and submitted it to a number of festivals, strictly choosing festivals where movies that got accepted would be exhibited for an audience, or at least festivals that claimed this would be the case. I submitted to OzIF based on its promises that it would be an actual in-person event with screenings for a public audience, and everything seemed okay. Then in the succeeding months, I started getting a number of emails from film festivals who met all the textbook criteria of being allegedly huge scams, such as the Red Fox Film Festival, the Snow Leopard Film Festival, and the Art Giraffe Film Festival. There's a recurring theme where it's always word followed by animal. And as I said before, none of these film festivals should have had any way of accessing my email. Film Freeway themselves confirmed that they don't share users' emails with any third parties, and that they believe smaller events are trading email lists. I'm not necessarily alleging that OzIF were the ones distributing my email to other people. I merely bring it up because it did call to my attention how a lot of these allegedly scam festivals operate. Then on February 2nd, 2024, I received another unsolicited email from a festival calling itself the Global Indie Film Fest, or GIF, offering me a discounted entry into their alleged festival. I immediately emailed back asking where they got my email address from, but was ignored. I emailed them again 4 days later, repeating the question, and was again ignored. On February 7th, I sent one final email outlining that after looking through their website, I had enough evidence to allege that the festival was fraudulent, didn't actually host any screenings, and was using improperly sourced emails to poach suggestible filmmakers into wasting their money. After being ignored once again, I sent a detailed report to Film Freeway, and in the blink of an eye, they actually decided to delete the entire listing.
You're done.
I've submitted a number of reports about allegedly scam film festivals to Film Freeway before, but this was the first time that they actually decided to remove a festival off their platform. And you know who the director of that festival was? Barry Porter Robinson.
This is quite a shock. On the other hand, it's not surprising in the least.
So I would allege that Robinson took the emails of those who submitted to OzIF and then used them to promote another unrelated festival, sending unsolicited emails to people who submitted to OzIF. And I'm not alone in this, because a fellow friend of mine and fellow filmmaker who also submitted to OzIF had the same experience. Ever since that happened, I became suspicious of the Oz Indie Film Festival, but it still appeared to be a legitimate event, so I didn't question it. Then comes April 2024. And I see the notification date of OzIF looming. But despite the fact that filmmakers were meant to hear back by the 29th, the notification date got moved to May 1st, quite literally the same day as the alleged event itself, meaning that any filmmaker whose movie has made the cut and is going to get screened at this supposed festival is going to find out on the actual day of the festival. At 10:24 AM on the morning of May 1st, I emailed them directly asking for an update on the notification process as well as where OzIF would be happening on that day. At 8:17 PM, I heard back from the OzIF team. They actually misspelt their own initials in this email, despite the fact that in a previous sentence they had gotten it right. They claimed that all information is available on the OzIF site and that all filmmakers were notified via email, not through Film Freeway.
Fucking liar!
I immediately responded that I received no such email notification and asked them when I was allegedly notified before sending another email elaborating that their website did not provide any of the details about whether festival or screenings were happening, despite their previous claims. The next morning at 8:11 AM, I did actually receive a notification that my film had been updated to honorable mention status on Film Freeway, the day after the deadline and after they had emailed me claiming that I had already received notification. At 10:52 AM, I received another email claiming that only award winners received email notification, whereas everyone else was informed via auto software. I responded about 30 minutes later explaining that they were claiming two very different things in each email, as well as pointing out that I was notified via Film Freeway despite their initial email saying that they didn't notify filmmakers through Film Freeway. I also once again asked for the details about the festival and screenings because they just kept ignoring it. But this email received no response, so 2 days later I sent it again. And this time I heard back from a different email address for the mysterious Darren Turner, allegedly the festival organizer and a man whose email address spells his name with a single R, whilst everywhere else it is spelt with two. I did some research and found the name of one Darren G. Turner as a colleague of Robinson, so it's safe to assume that this is the man in question. Only problem is, Turner passed away on June 20th, 2022, 2 years beforehand, and somehow he was continuing to email me from beyond the grave. Despite being deceased for upwards of 2 years, Robinson has continued to list his name as the festival organizer, and his OzIF email address was used. Maybe Darren H. Turner and Darren G. Turner are two different people, or maybe Robinson just pressed the wrong letter when typing this up. It wouldn't be the first time he made a spelling error. You'll notice that this is a recurring theme with Robinson. But anyway, the deceased man claimed to me that award winners received emails, everyone else received notifications through the platforms they entered with, and that the event took place in Albert Park near the St Kilda Sports Club and the Alex Theatre. You hear that? They told me where the event happened near. You know, it seems to me that any legitimate film festival would have no problem divulging where its event actually happened, and yet this one just seemed very determined to hide it down to the last detail. And on that note, this is the final correspondence I ever received from anyone at OzIF. I replied to this email 40 minutes later asking why your staff would lie to me about being notified and repeatedly backtrack, as well as asking for the actual festival location and if they had any photos of the event. Surely there should be at least one photo of this festival somewhere in the world, right?
Nope.
I mean, if the event happened, then surely...
Wrong.
On May 5th, I emailed Darren again, this time asking him to verify the location of the 2024 festival, or any of the festivals from 2021 onward, as there was no evidence of any of them I could find online.
Ignore.
Then comes May 22nd, 18 days after I had first asked him to verify the event and received nothing. That's when I sent the email you saw at the start of this video, giving them until Monday, June 27th before I would be passing a report on. And I actually messed that one up myself. I meant to write Monday, May 27th, because June 27th is actually a Thursday. Nonetheless, we've passed that date now, and I still haven't heard any further correspondence back from him.
So you get nothing!
I sent my investigation to Film Freeway, detailing everything I had found. I outlined that not a single photo of an in-person event can be found online and that they refuse to divulge the location of any of their events. Their website simply claims that OzIF screened free in St Kilda in Albert Park. It allegedly screened in two very different suburbs, according to this grammatical nightmare of a sentence.
I don't believe that.
To add to that, the Film Freeway listing was then updated to claim that the 2025 event was going to be happening at the Jam Factory, where one of the notorious Village cinemas is. I personally contacted the Jam Factory, who confirmed for me that not only have they had no communication with OzIF, but that they don't even typically book events that far forward. After I forwarded this correspondence to Film Freeway, suddenly the 2025 listing location was updated to TBC.
I want TBD. Is that new?
I also brought attention to the social media links on the OzIF website. Despite claiming that it's all about exposure, OzIF has made no effort to promote any of the films they've allegedly screened on a single social media platform. Initially, their Facebook page didn't even have a single new post since 2020, despite 4 years of festivals allegedly happening since then. But remarkably enough, after my report was sent in and Film Freeway got in contact with OzIF, OzIF's Facebook page suddenly decided to post images of all the winning movies from this year. And accordingly, this film won for the best of the 2025 season, you know, a year that actually hasn't even started just yet.
Sure, it's not 1985 right now, but who knows what tomorrow will bring?
The LinkedIn link on their website initially led you to a page for the 2020 event, meaning that it obviously hasn't been updated in 4 years. It still takes you to the same link if you click it now, but the page is a dead end. You'd think if this was a legitimate event, these links would be better maintained and the LinkedIn one would take you to a more contemporary event. Their Instagram page has never made a single post, and their YouTube link brings up a message stating that the channel has been removed because it violated our community guidelines. I can't say for certain what happened there, but it does further my suspicions. And the last post from their Twitter page wasn't even about OzIF, it was about GIF, the festival that Film Freeway just did not hesitate to delete. To make matters worse, there's been a complete lack of quality control in maintaining the OzIF website. Understandably, spelling mistakes happen along the way for everybody. We're all guilty of doing it from time to time. But a perfectly legitimate festival should have a lot more attention paid to quality control to ensure that it's not happening on the scale that it's happening with OzIF. But instead, you've got a website that claims to be for independent filmmakers. Under the award winners tab, it gives thanks to all the filmmakers who entered. And the Join Our Team section of the website proclaims to be needing volunteers for its third season, despite the fact that the third season alleges to have occurred in 2021. Which would mean that this section of the website hasn't been updated since back when they were actually hosting events. And anyone whose film was not selected for OzIF or given any of the phony award titles receives this message saying that they hope to find a place for your next project in the 2024 season of OzIF. You know, the next time 2024 happens after this year. If your project is under 20 minuets in length, it may qualify for TV broadcast in the USA. And despite all my research, I have not been able to find any evidence that any of these films screened anywhere online at any point in time on the behalf of OzIF or anyone involved. I will forward you film for review.
Terrible.
Take a lap.
The most wonderful irony in these spelling errors being rampant everywhere is the fact that Barry Porter Robinson proclaims to run two businesses specializing in website design, known as Design Glasgow and Fab Media Design. And the spelling errors continue on these websites, with Fab Media Design claiming to be Melbourne based, as well as the contact page not offering a single way of getting in touch. If all this wasn't damning enough, I took it upon myself to contact as many filmmakers as I could over the past 4 years who entered OZIF and either won or were nominated for one of their prestigious awards. According to their listing, all selected nominees will be invited to our live screenings for the opportunity to meet people from the film industry. And yet of all the nominated and winning filmmakers, not a single one I spoke to confirmed receiving any such invitation. 7 nominated or winning filmmakers said they'd received no invitation to the alleged screening, and only received correspondence confirming that their films had won or been nominated for awards on May 1st, the date of the alleged festival itself, meaning that if your film did make the cut, and if the festival did in fact actually go ahead as they proclaimed, that you would have the day of the event to get notified and then get to the festival to meet all the supposed industry figures if you could in fact find out where the event actually was happening and not where it was happening near like I could. But yeah, based on all this, I can conclusively say that I don't think a single event has happened from the year 2021 onwards. As a final note, when submitting this report to Film Freeway, the transparency section of the listing claimed that it was being managed from the United Kingdom, Spain, and Austria. 3 countries that are not Australia. You know, the Australia from Oz Indie Film Festival. But you know whose Facebook page has been proudly boasting that he's been off in the United Kingdom and in Spain and in Austria? That's right, Barry Porter Robinson himself. I will say that just before I started writing the script for this video, I revisited the listing and the transparency section had been updated to list Australia as one of the countries that it had been managed from. But I also can confirm that when I sent my report on May 27th, Australia was definitely not one of the countries, so I can't explain what's happened there. After sending 3 reports of information into Film Freeway, they notified me on May 29th that they had changed the festival's listing to a non-public one, meaning that from now on, people could only find the festival if they had a link to it and it would not appear in the website search directory. This means that the alleged scam festival could go on operating on Film Freeway, it would just not come up if you search it up in the public directory. And this felt like a slap on the wrist to me. Now sure, filmmakers like myself came across this festival just by searching festivals up in the first place, but Barry Porter Robinson had previously operated GIF, which had improperly sourced emails that he had accessed another way to invite people to that film festival. As such, it would not surprise me if he was willing to use improperly sourced emails to continue operating the alleged scam with OZIF. The other scam festivals I mentioned have been doing that very thing. They're all non-public listings, but somehow they gain access to emails of filmmakers like me, and Film Freeway continues to let it happen. Since Film Freeway did not initially seem willing to take further action on this festival, I decided to report on it. And when I started writing my script for this video on June 29th this year, it led me down a deep, dark rabbit hole that went so much deeper than I could have ever imagined. I am talking, there is some borderline psychotic stuff out there if you start researching the background behind this festival. When I typed the name Barry Porter Robinson into Facebook, I found multiple different Facebook accounts by the man, including one named Edward Porter, making me wonder what his actual name is. But it also led me to a series of posts by Robinson and OZIF founder Frank Howson accusing each other of deceitful behavior, mistreatment of finances, and much, much more. I definitely cannot say what is factual out of any of the allegations these two men have levied against each other, and there is also a lot of political content in what they've been saying about each other that I'm not going to delve into because it is not the subject of this video. However, Howson has written multiple times about some incredibly damning allegations against Robinson. The most detailed one I could find alleges a number of things. First of all, it alleges that he and Robinson agreed to split the profits from the Oz Independent Film Festival 50-50. And considering that OZIF has been parading around calling itself a not-for-profit film festival, this could allegedly be an admission of some kind of tax fraud going on behind the scenes. Howson alleges that when Robinson registered the website for the festival, he put it in his name only and repeatedly ignored requests to put Howson's name on. He also alleges that Robinson is a Satanist. I just found that one funny, honestly, and it also lends credence to the fact that we should take all these allegations with a grain of salt. Howson alleges that Robinson took all the money from the OZIF account and showed up under the influence of ice, or crystal meth for those of you not familiar with the slang. In the aftermath of all this conflict, Howson resigned from having anything to do with OZIF before the year was over. In the aftermath of this fallout, Robinson allegedly took a website he had designed for Howson and changed the password to lock him out of it before turning it into a slander page full of defamatory accusations against Howson. And there are some pretty damning allegations made against the man, but this is a very bold move, especially considering that to this day, Robinson continues to advertise the old website's design on the websites for both Fab Media Design and Design Glasgow, as well as writing dedicated to our founder Frank Howson on the bottom of the OzIF website. A number of other people have come forward on social media making allegations about Frank Howson, so it is not going to be on me to determine what is factual and what is fictional about the allegations these two people have made against each other. All I will say is that in my personal experience dealing with Barry Porter Robinson, he has not proven himself to be a person who is worthy of my trust. Also, his anti-Frank Howson website published a segment from someone claiming to have unfriended Howson on social media for his misogyny, then proceeding to call him a bitter old Sydney Puff. You know, a notoriously homophobic slur. If your website's going to call someone out for one alleged form of bigotry, maybe don't do it by publishing another form of bigotry to insult that man. They're both terrible there, Robbo. As I've said throughout this video, everything I'm presenting is allegations based on my own research. I am not here to condemn anyone for anything they haven't done, or to encourage anyone to antagonize or harass any of the subjects in this video, okay? I condemn that kind of behavior. So I do also need to entertain the possibility that I could in fact be wrong, that despite the fact that there is no photo evidence online of any festival since 2021, despite the fact that none of the filmmakers I've spoke to said they received any kind of invitation to these supposed event screenings, that it could still in fact have happened each year since 2021. I suppose it is possible.
I'll believe that when my shit turns purple and smells like rainbow sherbet.
The only things in this video I can in fact cite as hard facts is the information that's come to me from my research, so let me list a few points. No hard evidence of a single post-2020 OzIF festival actually happening is available on Film Freeway or any of the social media pages. All requests for photos or information about the event have been completely ignored by the OzIF staff, and no invitations to any of the events were given to the filmmakers I spoke to, despite the listing promising that this would in fact be the case. Filmmakers who submitted to OzIF found themselves receiving unsolicited invitations to another event run by Robinson, which was immediately removed from their website once I brought this to their attention. The website is loaded with broken links, copious amounts of spelling errors, and no information on where any of the past or future events have taken place, aside from this one grammatical nightmare here. And despite claiming the 2025 festival would happen at the Jam Factory, the cinema in question has confirmed that there has been no correspondence between them. And yet, despite the hard facts and allegations that were compiled in the reports I sent to Film Freeway, they still allowed this alleged scam to continue operating on their platform after 4 years of supposedly defrauding money from filmmakers. And you have to wonder, why?
Why? 'Cause fuck them, that's why.
In the aftermath of these reports, I contacted as many filmmakers as I could who had submitted to OzIF over the past 4 years and told them all to ask Film Freeway for a refund, and some of them confirmed for me that they were able to get their money back. I too was able to get my money refunded. I did have to make the request 4 times, but they finally read it. Still, I also received another email from one of the filmmakers that I spoke to. This filmmaker made allegations that read, "I think Film Freeway is the biggest scam because they know they are dealing with very dodgy film festival scams, and because they are making buckets of money from this, they would be most disinclined to shut any of them down." This too is an allegation, but it is also an allegation that I personally believe there is actually a decent amount of truth to. When I previously got in touch with Film Freeway about Global Indie Film Festival regarding their misuse of my email, they told me they were in discussions to implement stricter policies and measures for deactivating festivals that engage in such practices. And yet, whilst they deactivated that listing, they continue to let OzIF, Red Fox, Art Giraffe, and other obvious scammers operate on their website. Last time I asked them about Red Fox and Art Giraffe, they told me no updates as of yet, but complaints have been noted. The decision to change OzIF to a non-public listing definitely makes it harder for filmmakers to fall victim to the alleged scams going on there. However, any festival that knows how to improperly source people's emails and get in direct touch with them, offering them some kind of discount or incentive, is still likely going to be able to draw vulnerable filmmakers in to falling victims to scams at fake film festivals. Take the Red Fox Film Festival. They somehow acquired my email address and claimed to have heard a lot about my great work, which I remind you hadn't screened anywhere at the time, in an obvious effort to poach my money. This festival has openly admitted to receiving an estimated 1,875 submissions despite being a non-public listing, which means they've been able to rope in nearly 2,000 people, most likely from improperly sourcing other people's emails. The spam they send out comes with an incentive, a 50% entry discount. So if most of their categories are about $27, we'll say that filmmakers who have entered have probably paid at least $10 US each, which would mean that the festival has made $18,750 USD. And my understanding is that Film Freeway allegedly takes a profit from every entry, meaning that they've taken a percentage of $18,700 of improperly sourced money. I'm not sure what percentage, but any amount of improperly sourced funds is just plain wrong. And when you consider the number of festivals that I haven't even talked about in this video because they're operating under the radar as non-public listings, scamming other people, going on and taking large amounts of money similarly, we can only imagine how much financial fraud is going on because of the scams that are continuing to operate on Film Freeway.
Well, that sucks.
When I've paid money to a film festival only to later find out that I've been scammed by a fake one or just treated poorly by a legitimate one, 9 times out of 10 Film Freeway has in fact proven that they're willing to refund me. Sometimes, like in the case of Ozif, it's taken me sending 4 emails before they'll even acknowledge the refund request though.
Oh, you've got to be shitting me.
Give me back my money!
In my opinion, however, the central problem lies in that Film Freeway finds it to be a way more convenient structure to allow these scam festivals to operate on their platform, take money from filmmakers, and then refund filmmakers only upon request, instead of just taking the necessary steps to ensure that these scam film festivals are not operating in the first place, or refunding all the filmmakers that have been victims of the scams once those festivals have in fact been taken down. In the later part of my investigation, I found that their website lists a deactivation policy saying that they have a zero-tolerance stance, that any festival sending spam emails, defrauding users, or providing false information will be immediately and permanently banned from the site. And yet several festivals I've previously received spam emails and false information from, including Red Fox and Art Giraffe, are all continuing to operate. And of course Ozif, who have allegedly broken every single one of these rules, with 4 reports on all of the ways they've broken the rules of the deactivation policy being sent to them, still face little consequence more than having their listing changed from a public one to a non-public one. This page cites that fraudulent activity undermines the trust on which Film Freeway is built, whereas I would say that Film Freeway's failure to actively rectify the amount of spam, false information, and fraud going on their platform is what undermines my trust in them. As it currently stands, they have a 2.7 star rating on Trustpilot, with the majority of reviews being 1 star, and most of them complaining about a surplus of spam. It would appear that the wide opinion of Film Freeway is that they are not combating spam properly, despite claims that they will eliminate any festivals guilty of doing this. When Film Freeway first told me of their intent to change Ozif's listing to a non-public one, I questioned why they didn't consider a more serious response considering the scale of fraud being alleged against them. The response I got on May 30th merely said, "For now, this is the action that we have taken. We have not ruled out any further action, including account termination." However, it took 2 months of me continuing to dig deep, investigate, compile reports, email them, and eventually cite their own deactivation policy before finally, on August 6th of 2024, they sent me an email confirming that Ozif had been removed from their listing on Film Freeway.
Flush that turd down the drain!
Going back to the beginning of this investigation, I find it hilarious that I probably would not have discovered everything about Ozif's alleged scamming had they just kept their promise of notifying filmmakers like myself by the deadline that they had promised. But since they can't keep their promises any better than the perfectly legitimate film festivals can of notifying filmmakers by the date that they've promised after taking money from us, that is what has led me to discovering this massive alleged scam going on. So you know what? On behalf of filmmakers everywhere, to every fake film festival that has attempted to extort money from people like me after we've put hard work into our projects, and to every perfectly legitimate film festival that has taken money from filmmakers like me and has decided to post the lineup on their social media without bothering to notify us after the promised deadline has arrived,
take a big step back and literally fuck your own face!
I'm going to wrap this video up by acknowledging that one of 2 things needs to happen moving forward to see a better change. 1. Film Freeway needs to increase their scrutiny towards the festivals operating on their platform. They need to hold festivals to a higher standard to prove that they aren't scamming people. They need to act on their deactivation policy more proficiently by removing listings sooner when the hard evidence says that they're breaking the rules. They need to actively refund filmmakers once they've learned who has been scammed instead of waiting for a refund request. And on top of all that, they need to ensure that legitimate festivals are showing the bare minimum respect for filmmakers submitting to them. Festivals need to notify filmmakers by the promised deadline or prior to announcing their lineup on social media, because any decision otherwise is just blatant disrespect, especially after taking money from us. I mean, we are the backbone of festivals. There would be no festivals for films if the filmmakers weren't there to submit them.
We made you!
Film Freeway have told me on multiple occasions that they consistently remind festivals to do the right thing and notify filmmakers, but they cannot enforce these notifications.
Can't or won't?
You pick. It's the same result.
In my opinion, Film Freeway saying they cannot enforce this comes across as very insincere to me, because they're in control of this platform. And I would argue that if they put a financial incentive in place, then film festivals would start behaving a lot differently. For example, After a filmmaker submits an entry fee, if you told a festival that for every day after the deadline that you do not notify a filmmaker on whether they've made the cut, that filmmaker will then receive a 10% refund on their entry fee every single day for 10 days, then suddenly I think festivals would start behaving a lot differently. Sometimes festivals have unexpected issues come up and they can't meet the deadline, so I understand that. I would say put in an added clause saying that if you notified the filmmakers and said, sorry, we haven't met the deadline, we will promise to meet the deadline by this date, we're having some issues, then I think that would be completely fair. But as it stands right now, film festivals are just getting away with way too much disregard towards the filmmakers who have made the movies and who have paid them. One drawback I can see coming from this is that film festivals might feel less inclined to operate on a platform if they think that they may end up losing money for not doing, the bare minimum and meeting the promises they've made towards filmmakers. But I think Film Freeway would then have to ask themselves, who do we want to side with more in this situation? The filmmakers, whose work is the backbone of our industry and whose money is the source of our profits, or the film festivals who are behaving poorly and not meeting the bare minimum standards promised to our filmmakers? Film Freeway have said our team will discuss how to improve this process for both festivals and filmmakers, but when you leave it up to frustrated consumers like me to do the dirty work of researching these festivals and sending report after report for months on end before you decide to take the appropriate steps of removing something that is very evidently an alleged scam, then I think that the world as a whole needs to turn to an all-purpose contingency plan with film festivals.
You mean Plan B?
Yes, B.
It might be time for someone to actually create an alternative platform to compete with Film Freeway. Currently, they've got a monopoly on the market and they make the rules. But since those rules are constantly being broken and people are falling through the cracks of the policies being promised by the website, it may be time for another platform to come along and put a greater degree of focus on the respect towards the filmmakers, on ensuring that a higher standard of behavior is met by festivals, and way more investigation is being given to scammy film festivals when people are calling attention to them. But this is all just wishful thinking, especially coming from someone who is not willing to actually start that platform myself. So this is all just an idea. And I want to conclude this video by just going off script and talking from the heart. Because I should not be here today. I did not get into this to become any kind of investigative journalist trying to expose alleged scams in the film industry. I got into this because I'm an artist at heart, because my dream is to be a filmmaker. I don't need to be a commercially successful filmmaker. I don't need festivals to be accepting my work as much as it sucks when they don't. I just need to know that people are doing the bare minimum when it comes to the promises made in the industry. When a festival says we'll notify you by this date and then they don't, but they continue to boast on social media about the fact that they haven't and you have to find out like that, it is dehumanizing, especially when you put your heart and soul into work for so long. I spent 3 years making my film, trying to put the best I could into the work, only for people to try and scam money from me for it, or take money from me, and then not do the bare minimum, even when they're operating a legitimate film festival. And this is just not okay. There is so much that needs to change in the film industry, so many more deep and complex issues than I've even touched upon today. But currently, the film festival scene has been such a dehumanizing and ugly process that with my next work, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to even try competing at festivals, because currently I have spent more than $1,000 submitting to a bunch of film festivals, and my film hasn't made the cut to most of them simply because my work is not up to the criteria or the level of standard they're looking for, which sucks, but that's okay. But to know that so many scams are being allowed out there, and so many legitimate film festivals aren't doing the bare minimum to treat artists like myself with respect is just not okay. There is just so much that needs to change, and I am waiting for it to happen. I'm just hoping that this video serves as maybe a sign that someone out there just looks at it and says, we need to fucking take steps somewhere else. My brain is fried, I'm out of words, and I'm just sick of the film festival scene. So you won't see me there. Anyway, thank you for sticking with me throughout this video. Good luck to all the filmmakers out there, and to all the festivals out there, you better watch yourself.